definitely met him when he was about 17 or so.
Okay.
So he was still a teenager. He signed with us, and I think his first fight was when he was 19. Guy comes in, starts competing for us. I think he was owner. I think it was his first professional fight with us. Builds himself up. Didn't win every fight. Literally lost a fight, but then gets back in there, continues, wins, becomes our champion, becomes our double champion, and then signs to the UFC, and now he's UFC champion of the world. It's like, that's the perfect, that is literally why EFC exists. Effectively a feeder system to the UFC,
Yes.
So it's like, hey, you want to get to the UFC and you're in Africa, you come to us, fight for us, win, do well, build your profile, become famous, and have the UFC pay you lots of money to come.
Cairo Howarth is the co-founder and president of the EFC, Africa's premier MMA organization. Under his leadership, the EFC has become a globally recognized brand, serving as a gateway for African fighters to compete on the world stage. EFC provides elite fighters with the greatest opportunities. The organization has redefined the landscape of creating champions and elevating the sport globally, and has definitely left its mark as the most important fight promotion on the continent.
Heavy is the head to wear the crown. When I take the crown off, I put it on ice.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for making time, man. I appreciate you. Good to see you.
Awesome, you too.
Tell me, if we at like a dinner party of some sort and someone asks you in some sort of professional setting, there's maybe some sponsors around that you're trying to catch, how do you best articulate what you do for a living?
Sure. Dinner party and sponsors around are two separate things, I suppose.
Could happen.
We look at it from and again, depending on the crowd and what kind of mood I'm in too. So generally, if I give the vanilla answer, I say we're in sports and entertainment and media.
Yes.
But then normally people are like, okay, what's sport? And then you kind of get into the detail. If it's a bit crazy or I laugh, sometimes I'll meet like other parents at the school or whatever. They're like, what do you do? And if I'm either like, I want to get in or out of this conversation, I'll say we do sex, drugs, and fighting. And they'll look at me and then they'll either be my best friend or they'll disappear. It kind of goes that route. But generally we just push most of the time that I spend, most of the business that I spend my time on is on EFC. So we focus on the sport and entertainment and media.
Incredible. And you are one of the founders or the founder?
One of the co-founders, yeah.
Okay, one of the co-founders. Amazing. So tell me, if we now watching a documentary on your life, or we live like reading your autobiography, where do you think that story would start? And feel free to take it as far back as like parents' context. Like if you can just paint a early context of your story to us.
That's interesting. I suppose it would be, we're myself and my two brothers, who are my business partners as well. We were very fortunate with an amazing upbringing, an amazing life, like a lovely family. And our father, from very young, got us into business, looking at different concepts and that type of stuff. So we started working for ourselves very young, even before we finished school. We starting tinkering around with different companies and things like that. So it's I'd say it kind of started off straight after school from a business point of view, and then getting into different ideas and starting stuff, and started off with design and video editing and advertising, and then kind of grew from there.
Amazing. And your brother's older, younger?
I'm the middle one. So
you're the middle child. Okay, amazing. Yeah. So you keep the balance between everybody.
I try.
Yeah.
No, it's good fun.
And so, did you study after school?
No, I enrolled and I tried, but I did not complete anything. No. So at the same time, we had started a business. Myself and my older brother at the time had started a television production company, advertising agency. And I enrolled at university, but then I was like, go to a lecture or work. So I ended up not doing the lectures, and then I'd try to write the exam, but obviously that didn't go down so well. And I tried again a few years later to enroll again, and same story. So
And what sort of projects did you guys do as the production company?
We started off doing direct response television. Okay. So we're very focused on, back then, this was, pre-internet time, certainly pre-social media time. So, we'd create an advert for a product, and it would go on television and people would order it and sell, and testimonials. So we were very focused on testimonials. So we produced, at one point we were delivering over 40 ads to television a month. So it was high volume, and kind of test the market. It was try a product out with an advert. If it sells, throw more money at it and keep it going. But only 1 out of 10 would work, or whatever the number was. Obviously try to get the ratio as high as possible. But it was really just trial and error and see which ones would work. And then the ones that work, put the budget behind.
So in terms of building concepts, was EFC the first one you guys started with, or there was a couple of things you did before that, right?
It was so we had this advertising agency effectively.
Yes.
And we were running flat out. We were working, full time, and we had over 20 staff, and we're delivering 40 ads a month to television, and we're just churning. And it was great. We're making money, but we didn't actually own anything. We had no value besides our agency.
Business,
and
right?
if we lost our client tomorrow, our agency was worth zero. In fact, we had a liability because we had all the staff. So we're kind of like, we got to a point where we were just, we looked at that and we realized it was better to build our own brand instead of building someone else's brand. That would be the ideal situation. And then my younger brother joined up with us, and we launched Sex Expo at the time. We brought that into South Africa. So that was in 2006 going to 2007. And that was the first time we had our own brand product, really, so to speak, but a big consumer
Sex Expo
product.
was first.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Who comes up with the idea? Who sits down? Like, how does that moment of like, we should do this? Do you guys see a conference abroad, or how does it happen?
That one, if my memory serves me correct, my younger brother I was having a party at his house, and a girl came over who had just been in Australia or was Australian, I can't remember which one, and she said something about being at a Sex Expo. And he was like, what is that? And we got online and had a look, and this was 2006. So nothing like that was in South Africa at the time. Yes. I mean, South Africa in 2006 is very different to today, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we looked at it and thought, geez, this is a good business idea. We could get into that, that should be fun, make some money. We were all early 20s. And then at the time, someone else was doing had launched one locally, so a similar competing brand. And Sex Expo at the time had never been outside of Australia, so they were just operating in Australia. So we first thought, let's copy it, and we contacted them and got all their information, like their sales decks and the rest of it. But then because someone else had launched a competing version in South Africa, they booked a venue and announced it, and we had nothing to do with the adult industry, and we'd never been in events before, so we're kids, so we're like, well, how are we going to get the buy-in from the exhibitors, who are the first people you need? How, we know we can do the marketing, but no one else knows that. But how are we going to get the adult worlds, all of those type of brands to pay us money upfront for a stand, for a show that we've never done, and we've never done an event before, and. So we thought that Barrier, in order to make ourselves more credible, let's actually license the Sex Expo brand in Australia and bring it to South Africa. So we contacted the Australians and we said, this is what we want to do. We flew over there to Sydney to meet up with them, and we arrived. And back then, again, there was no video calls, it was phone calls, and emails. So we dealt with them on the phone, and we hammered out the contract and terms and the rest of it. And then we flew over there to basically sign the contract and to meet them and to watch one of their shows live. And we'll never forget, we arrive and we go and walk into their boardroom at the hotel they're staying at. These guys look at us and they go, you're kids, what are you doing here? And we're like, well, we're this far down the line now. Do you want to do a deal and make some money, or don't you? We signed the deal. We brought the concept back with them, them helping us. They did certainly help us a lot in the beginning, but there was also it was more the credibility. And then we did our first show in 2007 and then built that business up over 3 years. And then we actually sold it after 3 years. But so that came first, EFC, while we were doing that. Then
incredible, man. I remember the craze of Sex Expo when I was still in high school. It was like the talk
nuts.
of the town. Jeez. I mean, South Africans generally are quite conservative around these things. So when that launched at that time, it was like that talk of the town. I remember even after school, I remember people, would talk about getting jobs there, and they're doing promotions there, and they're doing this, and the things that people would see. Apparently there was some guy who would paint using his schlong there. There was Picasso or something. That was like the talk of the town, So it was all these different things you would hear about. And
it was a lot of fun. But we had no idea what we were doing, frankly, in the beginning. I mean, we arrived at that first expo, we didn't have radios. So we're phoning each other on our cell phones to communicate.
No,
literally, before that, we'd only organize our own birthday parties. And now we've organized a show where we had 30,000 people arrived. I mean, the first that first one, we're organizing our ticket sales, there's so much stuff that goes into it, but ticket books, we buy the ticket books, we get them printed, and we hired this really nice guy to help us with the cashiers. So he was hiring the cashiers, and he was going to take the money and, we'd give him the books and sign it over. Anyway, worked out the system. Like 2 or 3 days before, he looks at us and he goes, what's your ticket price? And now, because we come from direct response television, we're 89 Rand, right? We're not going to make it 100 Rand. We're going to make it 89 Rand. This is drilled into us since we're children, okay? Yeah. So 89 Rand a ticket. And he goes, how many people are you expecting? We say 30,000 people. That was like our target. He goes, great. I'm going to need 300,000 Rand and 10 Rand notes and 30,000 Rand and 1 Rand coins for change. And we're like, this is like 3 days before the show. We're like, what? Just that type of stuff. We got 100 of those stories, those type of things to organize.
How many tickets did you guys end up selling?
We did 30,000.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Jeez,
it was nuts. And we built that up to about 50,000 after 2 years we're getting at the show.
Jeez, Cairo, that's crazy, man. So 3 years, why did you guys sell it? Was it just...
it was growing nicely, and we got someone phoned us with a good offer. Good thing. And it was awesome. That feeling of building a business, exiting a business successfully, getting money in the bank, all of those type of things was pretty special.
Come true. And so how old are you when you sold it?
It's been 28, I think.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what comes next after Sex Expo?
So while we were running that, myself and my younger brother, Kelvin, we trained a lot of, grew up doing martial arts and the rest of it. And then we're getting into... And then MMA was coming up, doing a lot of Muay Thai, and then MMA was kind of starting. We were watching the UFC, but like online, like back then, UFC wasn't on television. There was nothing, It was early. This was 2005, 2006 as well. So we were in the gym, we're training at the gyms and enjoying it and a fan of it. But then at the same time, we had an events company at that time. Now we had Sex Expo running and doing well, and then we still had our television production company and marketing agency. So we were producing television. We'd never done live sport before or anything like that. But TV's TV in lots of ways. And then we just saw, a really good business opportunity effectively. It's not that often that a new sport will get invented. And this was MMA, is basically a new sport that came around back then that was going to be so popular. It was blowing up in the States and blowing up all over the world. And we realized, obviously, Africa is not going to be any different. It's going to be just as big here as it was going to be anywhere else. And we had the unique skill sets, and we were in the gyms training with the people. We knew the scene, and we were going to watch the shows that were taking place at that time. There was quite a few of them, but they were kind of running at a profit on the night. So they would book a hall or whatever, and they would make enough money from their ticket sales, table sales, that type of box and dine type of vibe, to make 50 grand, 100 grand or whatever. Which is fine, not perfect, good business model if that's what they want, but that was never going to get bigger. It was never going to go to television. If you want to go to TV, you have to invest more money, run at a loss effectively in order to build it up for later, to monetize it later. So we were the first people willing to do that. So we booked at the time was a Coca-Cola Dome in Johannesburg, which is the biggest, best venue, most expensive, and we booked that, and we paid for the full production to come in there. So we lost a lot of money.
And that was your first event?
Our first event, yeah.
Crazy, man.
So November 2009 was our first EFC. Fortunately, we had lots of cash in the bank from the sale of our other business. So, it was amazing timing, effectively. The money from Sex Expo was what started EFC. And we were able to run at a loss for a while until it got momentum. Because in order to build... back then the sport was basically was underground. It was cage fighting. It wasn't seen as mainstream. You're never going to attract a mainstream sponsor or broadcasters or anything like that. So we had to first build a good product, build a top quality product, and then that would all come. But that takes money and time.
But that's still incredible foresight, man. Because as much as you guys were in the scene and you could see UFC starting to gain traction abroad, like. It also could have been just like that early phase of a new sport coming in and fizzle out. Like that's great foresight to go like, this is going to be huge one day. I mean, geez, when you look at it now, it's like
massive,
arguably one of the biggest sports in the world or biggest growing sports in the world. Like, and I think it's just catching so many people. I don't even feel like it's reached its peak today. Like the sport is just growing and growing and, going to be the most exciting thing for a very long time, So that's incredible foresight. 2009, first event, eh?
Yeah.
How did that do?
again, it was our first live sports show. So,
Yes.
Different. And we're first time we had to build a cage, which had never been built here before, like the spec that we wanted.
Crazy.
So some of the suppliers weren't the best that we found at the time, but, we got
Yes.
it done. I mean, we were literally opened the doors, closed off so people couldn't get close to our hexagon cage in the beginning, and we were still putting nails in, still building it while people were entering the venue. We were finishing it, literally finishing it, not even joking.
Wow.
And then we're because we'd set a clock, we said we're starting at whatever time it was on that day, and we're sticking to it. So then people were in there, and I remember suddenly the first fights, guys start walking out, and I just grabbed the first chair that I could see, and I sat down, and that was my chair for the show.
Wow,
it was one
man.
of those. It was
crazy.
not from our side of our point of view, it was terrible, for
Yeah.
a lot of pain and didn't sleep all weekend and getting it done. But from the audience point of view, it was amazing. So, and the reason I say that is so many of the athletes that we have today, or we had in the subsequent 15 years, would come to us and say what changed their mind was EFC 1 when they came there, and there was just oh my goodness, finally there's something to compete for. I'm going to take the sport more seriously. Because lots of people were practicing, participating in the gyms, doing jiu-jitsu, doing MMA, but there was nowhere for them to go. So they were doing it on the side for fun, like an athlete like Andrew Van Sale, and then you can ask, and so many of the interviews subsequent to that, they said they came to EFC 1 and they said, okay, cool, now there's a platform for us to showcase our skills and to compete at. It's worth putting in the time.
Absolutely.
So,
And it changes your mind and your perception on the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like the dome, you're in the best venue, you see the lights, you see the effort, there's people.
We're doing promos, we're filming the athletes, we're building it up, all of that type
Absolutely.
of stuff. So before that didn't exist. So all of a sudden, you're like, oh, the sport I love that I've been doing as a side thing in the evenings for fun, I'm actually good at it, but I've never applied myself to it because there's no top game, there's no way out, So now they saw the path. And they saw the opportunity. So as much pain as it was for us to do that first show, from anyone participating or the athletes competing, it was amazing, and it built up from there. And obviously we fixed all of our stuff, and we learned what to do the hard way, the real way, I suppose. But it worked really well. We have an amazing team. We had an amazing team back then. Everyone put their hours in and worked out the new systems and got it together.
Yeah, it's important, man. You guys really created a sense of belonging for the fighters and something to actually now go, wow, this could be me and my life and my path, which didn't exist before. Like you said, having a fight night at a hall somewhere compared to walking into seeing that.
I mean, prior to that,
solidifies your dream,
Prior to that, people were literally being called out of the audience to come and compete. It was random, it was whatever, So now it was cool. We're matching the fights. They've got a training camp beforehand, and we're promoted properly, and then we obviously got on television and built it up.
So did you guys at first think, okay, cool, let's take the route we took with Sex Expo and try and bring UFC? Was that the sort of first strategy in the beginning, or was it from the get-go, we're going to build this ground up?
So UFC, even back then, they've never licensed. Only today they've licensed in one place, which is Russia, you can't do business in Russia otherwise. But so besides that, UFC run their own shows. You can't get a license and run a UFC event. So that was never an option for us. Okay. So we looked at it then, the same way we actually look at it now, is that there's more than enough space for both. They are amazing. UFC is the most amazing business we've ever seen, most amazing brand. What they've done, they built the whole sport from nothing, and they continue to bring more fans into it. But they're only producing 40 shows a year. 90% of them are on American prime time. There's a whole world out here.
Absolutely.
And you look at football, soccer, how many leagues there are, how many games are taking place a year. Yes. And so you're feeding so much content to a football fan, whereas in MMA, there's such a small amount of top-level competition taking place, but there's a global audience for it. We believe can be, it's in the billions. So, and again, if we just look at our niche and we go, if we can be Africa's development feeder league, this is where African athlete gets a chance to grow, develop, to get into the UFC. The reality of the UFC, of a business model of a fight promotion, is certainly in the UFC early days, where they're putting on shows in America. Who are they going to get to compete there? They're going to get people in America where they don't have a visa problem, where the people bring their crowd, and and not just even the tier down from UFC, the other development leagues that are there, the other lower level leagues, they're going to put Americans on their card or someone close by. They're never going to sign some guy from South Africa or Congo or Nigeria, battle to get them a visa, fly them over to the States when they've never had a professional fight before. And, why? Why would you ever do that when you can get someone in America who, for a fraction of the cost and effort and is going to bring a crowd? So if EFC didn't come along, or something similar to EFC didn't come along, if you're an MMA athlete in Africa, you're never going to get out. You're never going to get the opportunity to get the experience, to build up your name, to build your profile, and then to be noticed and to get to a level where an international promotion would invest that money, frankly, to bring you over, because it's not worth their time otherwise. Why would they ever do that? So there's a space for an African league, the same way there's for the soccer league in South Africa and AFCON in Africa. Still every footballer in the world still wants to play at the Premier League. In Europe, awesome. But how's a South African footballer or a Nigerian footballer going to get there? They first play in their local league, they get good, they become, a player of the year, they do really well, and then they get scouted, and then they go to the next one. So it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same format, effectively, same concept. So UFC is amazing. They're awesome, but they're not going to come and run 20 shows in Africa a year. Yes. And they're not going to be signing guys who are 0-0 and 1-0 and 2-0. They want the guys who are 10-0 and coming through. So how do we get the African talent to get there? How do we develop it? There's a need for it to actually be here.
Absolutely.
And we're very happy in that space. We're not competing with the UFC. We love the UFC. We are effectively a feeder system to the UFC. So it's like, hey, you want to get to the UFC and you're in Africa, you come to us, fight for us, win, do well, build your profile, become famous, and have the UFC pay you lots of money to come.
Amazing. And I love that that's within your business model too. You want that for the fighters as well, and it becomes a feeder system, and everybody's winning at the end of the day. It's great. I mean, we have to obviously touch on Dricus and everything that's happened there. Like, when's the first time you meet Dricus and he signs to the EFC?
I mean, definitely met him when he was about 17 or so.
Okay.
So he was still a teenager. He signed with us, and I think his first fight was when he was 19.
Yes.
But I'm sure he was coming to the event before that, and I must have known him from probably when he was 17. So now that's 15 years ago. And then he started competing for us. Exactly like I say, perfect example.
Yeah.
Guy comes in, starts competing for us. I think he was I think it was his first professional fight with us. Builds himself up, didn't win every fight. I mean, literally lost a fight, but then gets back in there, continues, wins, becomes our champion, becomes our double champion, and then signs to the UFC, and now he's UFC champion of the world. I mean, it's like, that's the perfect, that is literally why EFC exists. That is the reason for it. That is the reason we do this. And if that could never take place, then there's no point of us being here. But the reality is that is happening. That has happened. That is EFC's purpose, and that's why, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, it was such a proud moment, man. Like seeing EFC being featured on UFC, and just the light they put on the EFC and the way they did it. It was
amazing.
It was so incredible, man. I think many South Africans were sitting there like super proud seeing this, like, I mean, just the whole thing. I mean, you couldn't script it any better, right? It's like him becoming champion and you guys getting featured, and it's just, it was amazing. I won't lie, the first time I saw Dricus on UFC, I was just like, oof, it's a bit touch and go, like, with these heavy breathing and his like style. You're almost like, yo, where's this gonna go? Is he like at the highest level going to compete? And then it was just after that Bobby Knuckles fight where I was like, just every punch landing, I was like, no. This guy's freaking, he's like the Springboks here. Sometimes it doesn't look great, but there's just no way to beat him. It's effective, and just like also the way he stepped into the UFC, like such a polished, like incredible competitor,
and also presentable. The way he speaks, the way he puts himself forward, the way he puts South Africa forward, the way he puts African athletes forward.
Absolutely.
He's pulling everyone with him. He's not going there on his own and forgetting 100%. About the rest of the team. he's literally uplifting everyone along the way.
And he just like shocked me, especially with that Adesanya, just his eloquence of like the interaction and the speaking and the way he just in that, I mean, it's a heated moment. You're having this like conversation with someone with thousands of people watching and all people around, millions of people around the world, to even just catch the right words and thoughts and the way he presented himself, man. I was just like, wow, this is next level, man. And
look, he's an amazing athlete, but he's also very clever.
Absolutely.
So, and you can see the way, he puts
100%.
himself forward.
What a legend, man. Tell me, Dana White's always like talking about this, like UFC coming to South Africa. I imagine these are dialogues you're having with the UFC team. And, you know, are they picking your brain on some of these things? Like,
so, I mean, since they sent out a team from Vegas back in 2013, they came out to South Africa and they came to our event and came and looked at venues. So, I mean, it's been going on for literally over 10 years with us and them. So, you know, from a business side, it's so funny. Someone said to me, "Oh, Cairo, what's your, you know, you scared the UFC's going to come here?" And, you know, I said, it is the best thing ever for our business if the UFC, when the UFC, you know, comes here. I said, you know, it's the same as when the Soccer World Cup came to South Africa. Perfect example. I wasn't a football fan. I'd never been to a live football game in my life. I'd never watched Bafana. I had no interest, frankly. Soccer World Cup comes to South Africa. There's me in the Bafana shirt. I've got a vuvuzela. I'm at the stadium. I'm cruising around, watching a couple of games. Now, after that, I'm much more invested in football. I'm watching more of it. I care about the team, you know, all of that. Exactly the same with the UFC. Yeah. They're hopefully going to come here. They're going to blow it up. They're going to get more fans watching, more media, you know, covering it, more corporates wanting to get involved. And then they're going to leave the next day. And we're here. And we're going, hey, you want to be involved in this sport? This is how you do it. This is how you get the next Dricus to Plessis, the next Temba Garimbos. This is where they come from.
100%.
So it's literally the best thing for our business would be when the UFC does come here. So we've been, working with them on it. You know, they don't need us for anything other than the athletes. You know, that's what we provide to them, athletes and content. But certainly we are helping them with our local knowledge and say, hey, these are the venues that are, you know, we would say can work really well. And we obviously lobbying, you know, with the politicians to get them to support it because, you know, there's a whole bunch that goes into it. But yeah, those conversations are ongoing. Dricus is obviously moving the needle there, you know. So back from 2013, where they've been wanting to come to Africa, but they haven't come, the more this grows, the bigger it's getting like it is now, the more chance of that actually taking place.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the world champion saying, let's take this.
It's amazing, yeah.
Bumbaye, Dricus, Bumbaye, Dricus. Yeah, I can't wait for that, man. That's very exciting. Tell me, Cairo, from your side, what do you think is the future of the business? Where do you see EFC in 5 years? Like, is it just, you know, and feel free to tell us what do you need to take this business to the next level? Is it the sponsorship side? Is it, you know, bigger audiences? Like where are we and what are you sort of working towards and what does the future of the business look like?
So I think 5 years, I don't even know if we could say what that is. And the reason I say that is it changes in the media space. It changes so quickly.
Yes.
If we look back to pre-COVID, how our business from a revenue point of view and from a distribution and from how we host live events compared to how we do it today has changed so much.
Really?
Broadcast partnerships, all of that stuff, it changes so much and so quickly that I think that'll change, that will adapt. We obviously adapt as that goes along.
Tell me about that. Do you see it like going into a pay-per-view sort of model or what way?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know about pay-per-view in Africa just because it doesn't exist at the moment really. But the different type of distribution. So, for example, I'll give you an example. So, pre-COVID, we were, you know, we come back from a television background. We're very television focused. That's what we know. That's what we do. That would be producing for SuperSport and for our different TV broadcasters and distributing to them. And digital, frankly, to us was like an afterthought, you know. And then when we were in COVID, we couldn't host events for 14 months. We had an archive of hundreds of hours of cool fight content. So we started cutting videos for Facebook, literally for Facebook. We're like, what's the biggest platform in Africa? It's Facebook. Let's optimize our videos for that. And started posting old fights and they started to fly. Like literally
went crazy.
Some videos are getting 250 million views and mental. And all of a sudden we got something that Facebook was literally an afterthought in our life, was suddenly becoming our business. It's like literally getting huge numbers. And that first year we had video content watched on our Facebook page. So, you coming onto EFC's Facebook page, watching a video that we posted on there, we had 1.7 billion minutes watched in a year, which is, it's so massive. You can't even if I told you we got 100 million minutes watched in a year, you would have gone, oh, that's 100%. Ridiculous numbers, but we had 1.7 billion minutes watched in a year. So it's so huge, and that interaction and that engagement and so our business changed from a television production business, effectively. We're producing live events, but we're actually producing content. Now that content was very television focused, that suddenly content became very digital focused. So we've changed a lot. We now have a really strong mix of, I'll say, everything. So we have the television aspect, and we have an amazing television distribution across Africa and beyond. Then we have the digital side as well, with social media, and then we even distribute it by telco. So we try to make our content available to any fan wherever they are all the time. But I think where that's going to go, I don't know from a digital point of view. You see the Netflixes getting into live sport now, and into boxing and so, or the Amazons. So that might change from a distribution point of view. What won't change is getting our content out to people where they want to watch it. That's the focus. We also certainly seen a change from a brand point of view. A few years ago, MMA was seen as second tier, rugby, cricket, soccer, certainly in South Africa. A big brand would sponsor the Springboks or the Proteas or a soccer team, but MMA was seen as second tier. Dricus has completely changed that. Now Dricus is seen like a Springbok, MMA is seen like rugby. It's awesome. So any brand that previously from an association point of view might not have come on board, and it wasn't from a value. EFC, we always had the value. We had massive television distribution, our value was way higher than what we were selling from a pricing point of view. It was the reality was the association fit for a brand.
There you go.
Which I can understand. But now that association problem has come to, they want to be associated with it. So it's completely changed. So in the last 12 months, where we would be phoning a brand and they wouldn't want to have a meeting with us, they're now phoning us. It's completely changed the headspace, the positioning, which is amazing. And I think, and that's never going to go back. Once you become that mainstream, once you become on that thing, you've got Dricus, you've got more athletes coming, the next Dricus is coming through, and that's only going to get stronger and bigger and better for us. So we're in an amazing position from that point of view. Our value is still there. In fact, our value is bigger now than it ever was. On the back of this, the spotlight is on African MMA. Everyone's like,
really is.
Everyone's
really is.
Globally, not. Here MMA is the new hottest topic, but even in the States, most of our Facebook views come from America. So it's like Americans want to see where the next star is coming out of here. So we're seeing that pull from a branding point of view, from a growth point of view, and then at the moment we've been doing our events in our EFC, it's called the World Sport Betting EFC Arena, which is our own custom-built arena, effectively similar to exactly what the UFC do. They host 90% of their events in their UFC Apex Center in Vegas, and then they'll do big shows out and about. So we'll probably start doing that again, so hosting some, a couple shows a year outside in different territories. There's a good chance that we might do that up into Africa as well.
Amazing. I was about to ask. That would be epic.
Big opportunity. Definitely big opportunity, a lot more work in lots of ways, but is it completely necessary for our business today? Absolutely not. We can cater to markets in the rest of Africa without actually being in country. And the reason I say that is look at Big Brother Nigeria. It was produced in Randburg for 10 years. They filmed it, produced everything. They didn't go to Lagos to shoot that, so that you're producing content for a country. But, in South Africa, we're blessed in South Africa with amazing, talent and production team, and the quality of the production that we can produce in South Africa for the cost is very good.
Absolutely.
Compared to going, into Kinshasa and trying to produce that same thing, what that will cost us. So we look at it, we go, is it necessary to go to Kinshasa today, where we can have an athlete from Kinshasa competing against an athlete from Lagos, and they can be competing in South Africa? We're still promoting to those markets. We're on the national broadcasters, we're on the the pay TV networks there, we're on the telcos there, we're distributing it, we're activating in country, but we just host the event in South Africa. We're still appealing to that market.
And you're still on African soil. I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
yeah,
it makes sense. And I'm sure it's also great for the fighters. They want to come out to a different country. And, I guess when it makes sense, right? When you have a fighter there, you take it there.
I mean, we've got lots of champs from the Congo. We've got lots of government support from the Congo. But it's going to come down to when a telco in Congo or a bank says, I want an event in Kinshasa and we'll pay for it.
Amazing.
Okay, cool. Because then we can be there. Obviously there's work to get done, but that's where we see it going in reality. We see continuing to build on this momentum which we've got, which is just amazing, and continue to build the best African stars, the best African talent, giving them the opportunity. Like now, we had an event 2 weeks ago, and we've crowned our first Nigerian female champion ever. Awesome. Now she's gone back to Nigeria. 4 different TV networks wanting to interview her, and that's amazing. At some point, a big corporate in Nigeria is going to say, I don't want her to fly to South Africa for a title defense. The same as with Dricus. We want the show in South Africa for Dricus to defend his title. Someone's going to say, I want the show in Lagos for her to defend her title, as an example, and it'll get to that point. So I think a 5-year mark is realistic. Might be sooner, but I think that's probably realistic.
So in the past, how have you found fighters across the continent? What is your process there?
They find us.
Really?
So we've got 2 full-time people. That's all they do is look at athletes, go through applications effectively. People are applying every single day. We've obviously got a good network of gyms, managers that we work with. So there's managers all over and trainers that we know produce good talent and put people forward. So they're the ones putting people forward. And there's a whole amateur, league that's going on, or leagues or events that take place that we're scouting from. But they coming to us. We very much started with that, like I explained, EFC 1, build the awesome show that everyone wants to be on, and then the development kind of comes behind it. So we're on television on over 20 different TV networks in Africa. So we've got extensive television distribution. So all those people watching EFC on TV are seeing African athletes competing and then seeing the story of them going on and going to the UFC and then like a Timber Garimbo and going, okay, I can do that. And then they're coming to us.
Incredible. And I love even him, how he talks so highly of you guys. And, it's so nice to see. It shows that you guys have really looked out for the athletes here in their time in the EFC. I think it's a beautiful thing.
I mean, the stories are just, you say stories. It's EFC's got 200 athletes and everyone comes from different backgrounds and different stuff. It's so interesting. It's so diverse. It's so... And it's frankly so awesome to see when you get someone like Tembo who came from so little and literally fought his way through life, to get to where he is today. Yes. And amazing. Like you
see him with the rock, you're like,
it's mad.
Real.
It's madness.
Glitching,
I think I met Tembo. He was a young teenager when I first met him, and he came to. We're doing like an activation at Canal Walk, and he came and we set up at a new Metro cinema there and we're doing all thing. And he came and introduced himself to me. He said, one day I'm going to fight for you guys. He was an amateur back then. He wasn't even professional yet. I said, okay, cool, keep it up. And he's WhatsApping me and messaging me. I said, cool, keep going, do your thing. And then one day started fighting for EFC, got a last minute call, got in there, won, became our first Zimbabwean champion. Next thing he's meeting the president, sports person of the year. Next thing he's in the UFC, now he's with The Rock. I mean, it's like...
It's insane, man.
Yeah, you go through that guy's story, how he literally came over over illegally in South Africa and had no job and was literally fighting to like feed himself and look after himself. Was quite inspirational.
Crazy, man, crazy. Tell me, I saw Graham talking about something along the lines of the EFC Contender Series. Is that something that's coming now?
Yes, we're doing our first show next week, which is cool. So it's again extending this platform development. So at the moment, there's not enough amateur leagues, frankly, that are doing enough shows. So we need more athletes. We need the next Timbers and the next Dricuses, where they're going to come from. Yes. And often you'll see at EFC on our prelim cards, we'll have someone who's 0-0 fighting, which is fine. That's cool because there's nowhere else for them to fight, frankly. Like I explained earlier, if you're a guy who's 0-0 and in Kenya, you're not getting flown over to Europe to fight. No, they're not going to do it. But we're bringing them here. We're giving them the opportunity. So the Contender Series is a mixture of full amateur, where it's going to be amateur fights, so building up their amateur record. And then we're going to do exhibition fights, so similar to Contender Series and the UFC run.
Brilliant.
Where, cool, you're the top amateur, you're ready to go pro, you get your professional, you are that level. Let's give you that, then you're going to fight in professional rules effectively and see how you do. And then if you win there and do well, great. Then you come through the EFC. Then you're not getting someone who's frankly who's fought at some small amateur event. They've never been on the television camera in their face before. They've never had any of that type of stuff. And that's really difficult. Now they're going to come through our amateur system, fighting in the same cage, fighting with cameras, with the full production, the whole thing. And then doing the exhibition stuff pro-am effectively, and then coming through the EFC. So we're developing a better funnel or better quality athletes. We'll get better quality athletes, and it gives the athletes, when they finally get to EFC, that level will be higher than what we've been taking in at the moment, because they would have gone through that system as well. And we're going to be running a show a month for that. So there's no other amateur shows running like that. So they'll actually go, oh, cool, I can get my fights done. I can get the experience. I can see if I can do this or not. Whereas at the moment, I think there's 2 amateur shows booked for this month that they both got cancelled. So there's no amateurs. If you're an amateur athlete wanting to turn pro, wanting to get to EFC, they have no option. They can't do it. So we're doing this out of more of a necessity to build the sport more, really grassroots, growing it up, growing from that level up. It's quite exciting for us.
People watch it as well. Where will it be available?
So that will come. This is our first one. Just getting it done, and we'll put our content afterwards.
Epic,
but it'll, that's what we do.
It, man. It's going to be so exciting to follow someone's career from O&O, man.
So picture that. So picture Temba or Dricus. So we got Dricus and Temba for their first pro fight.
Yes.
Now we're going to get them from their first amateur fight or second amateur fight, coming all the way through, and we're going to see, look at this guy, or look at this girl, she's amazing. Look at their charismatic, blah blah blah, and then we're going to get them there, and then we're going to get them there. So one day when one of those athletes is a UFC champion, and we get their countdowns, and you're going to watch that UFC countdown show. We're going to give them footage from their amateur fights all the way through. It's like that full journey is what we'll have captured and documented and putting forward, which is pretty amazing.
You must already have a lot of footage, man.
Yeah.
Years of footage and fights. That's incredible, bro. Wow, man. That's very exciting.
We're excited
about that, man.
We're excited for it. It's good. And in some ways you could say we should have done it a while ago, but we build as when the time's right. Everything's about timing.
Everything's about timing, and it's no better time than now.
Exactly.
Tell me, how does your guys' business model work with the fighters? Do they get like a fee, and then are they able to raise their own sponsorship, or what's your guys' structure compared to I know on UFC side they can't really. The sponsorship thing gets sticky around the show. What is your guys' model?
Yeah, so UFC, we ran the same as UFC for a long time. They changed a couple of years back. Yes. So how it works is an athlete competes for us. We pay them when they compete, so they get paid to compete. That's exactly the same as the UFC. So you'll sign a contract to compete for EFC, or you'll sign a contract to compete for UFC, and every time you fight, you get paid, and you're paid for a loss or a win, and then there's obviously bonuses on top. And then the athletes can get their own sponsorships, endorsements. At the moment with EFC, they can wear their own, branding on their own clothing or whatever, which is cool.
Very cool.
The UFC used to be like that. They changed it over to being, give them a uniform effectively. They can still get their own sponsorships, but in Fight Week or any UFC content, you'll only see them in the UFC branded stuff. So there is a limited amount of value. Effectively, the UFC just limits their value, but UFC pay them, whatever. It's well worth it. There's pros and cons to both. That the look of their show is cleaner because of it. The uniform and the rest of it.
There's unison and colors and some weird brand sometimes.
Yeah. So there's definitely pros and cons, and I definitely think we're going to land up that way.
Yes.
I think there's more pros than cons, and it's part of our progression as well, for sure.
Yes, absolutely, man. I'm so excited for you guys, and it's incredible. You guys didn't just start yesterday. You've been in this for a long time, man. You guys
15 years. When Dricus won, a good friend of mine says, and he looks at me and goes, 15 years to be in the right place at the right time. Because that's effectively what now the spotlight's on the sport. Yeah, everyone wants to get involved. All the brands are, phoning us, and there's, like so much hype. It wasn't like that for 15 years, but you have to keep doing, you have to be there, you have to make yourself top of mind, you have to keep putting a good product forward, keep producing, and then at some point the timing's right and you're in the right place at the right time.
How many people in your team at the moment?
Probably got about 20 full-time people.
20 full-time.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. And the complete focus is EFC right now?
Yes. So yes and no. When I laughed at the beginning when we said the sex, drugs, and fighting. So,
yes.
So when we sold Sex Expo, we had a 10-year restraint of trade, which then ended, and the guy who bought it from us stopped running it after 2-3 years. So it was just sitting empty, and we said, "Is our team keen to work on this again?" And the team was keen, so we relaunched it as the Sex Expo, which is quite entertaining. So we do that again.
Okay.
And then we also launched the Cannabis Expo.
Okay.
So that's the drugs part of it, which is quite funny. But and that's those are, we also have Immigration Expo, some other smaller shows type of thing. But from an eventing point of view, EFC certainly, that's the big one. That's a business that can be, $1 billion plus business. The others are, they do their thing.
Yeah. Tell me, if you think back in your time with EFC, what would you say? Is there a day that you can think of that was like one of your toughest days, or a couple days? Like, is there one that just jumps to mind?
Yeah, easily. I mean, that's when athletes are injured.
Really, hey?
So that's the obvious. Not so obvious. Not so obvious if you haven't done it before, but when you have an athlete landing up in hospital, with a serious injury or worse, then those are the obvious negative points. I guess that's part of life, combat sport. We look at that and we say, have we done as much as we can? Have we put as much safety stuff in place as we can? And if we've done that, at least we know we're putting on the safest environment for these athletes to compete. And they're going to be doing it anyway somewhere else. So, for example, this the Contender Series that we're launching now, we're putting in brain scans, all that type of stuff. So we don't have to. No other amateur MMA show in Africa does that.
That's amazing, man.
So we're do pre-fight brain scans for the athletes. We're doing our same high quality care. We give private medical care for all of our athletes. That's all paid for by EFC. We don't have to do that. We have. On fight night, we've got 4 trauma doctors, we've got 16 paramedics, we've got 2 ambulances, we've got down payments at the nearest hospitals, we've got neurosurgeons, we've got everything done.
So I didn't know that.
Huge amount of, on fight night, a huge amount of stuff. Leading up to fight night, the pre-fight scans, the checks beforehand, we do hydration testing, we run a concussion program, we do so much to minimize the risk. There's always going to be a risk. Someone can always get injured, obviously, but as long we know we've done as much as we can.
Yeah.
Terence fought 2 weeks ago, broke his hand, sent him to the best hospital, get the best surgery. Now we're paying for his occupational therapy, his hand work, So we don't have to do that stuff, but we made the decision that we don't want to do this business if we're not going to do that.
Of course, man.
So, and that's what we're excited about with the Contender Series. We want to elevate the amateur series to that level, because now we want all the other amateur promotions to do that, because we believe it's the right thing to do. So if we put that in place and we make the level here, then everyone else hopefully will uplift and make it better.
Yeah, but it also the longevity that creates for those fighters, and that can be the difference of them one day becoming champions. Like, those margins get so tight, the higher the level they go and the better their conditioning is to
all of that
get to that point.
And they rehab.
Makes such a big difference.
But so often these athletes are, they think they're invincible. Obviously, the last thing they're thinking about is the medical side. But like Nicholas Wende, he also smashed his hand at our fight. We sent him, we got him best surgery, everything sorted. I remember I saw months later, and his hand was great. And he's like, oh, cool, thanks. So I made a joke. I'm like, oh, 180,000 rand to fix that hand. And his face, he's like, what? Just give me the money. Don't send me for surgery. I was like, no, it's a lot. He's like, frankly, they don't even know what we're spending on the medical side. But the point is, I said to him, Nicholas, now your hand will be able to work for the rest of your life. You'll be able to pick up your grandkids, and you'll be able to, walk around and open a door when you're older. And never mind your career, which is now extended, but your actual life will be better, So that's what we're putting the money in for. It's not, a lot of it's not for today. It's for these athletes much, much further down the line. Some of the athletes, the brain stuff that we do is really high level. We've got a really good team, like amazing team. Our internal team is fantastic, from the stuff that you see on television to the production, everything. We're an amazing internal team, and they've got our partners in the medical side are fantastic, and we really like looking after the athletes. So some of them will say, look, you can't fight anymore. Your brain, you've taken too many shots to the head, high level. Like that's what the reality of it at some point. An athlete will say, I'm fine, I'm perfect. And they get cross with us because we're cutting their career short. And I said, I know you're fine. That's why we're stopping now. We don't want you not to be fine. That's the whole point. We're ending it now because you're still fine. You don't want to keep competing until you're not going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, but often, crazily enough, we'll be seen as the bad person, because obviously if you're an athlete and this is how they make their money, and now they think we're cutting their career short by saying they can no longer compete for us. Yeah. But actually, the easiest thing for us would be, hey, keep fighting. We've built up your name. We can make money off you today, whatever. But we're spending money to stop you from fighting, to give you a better life later on.
Yeah. And that might not be understood in that moment, but
that's fine. That's fine. We'll be the bad guy all day for that, and that's perfectly fine. But that's certainly what EFC has done from a upliftment point of view, safety point of view. And we want more of that. And now pulling that into the amateur side, it's really awesome. Because the amateur athletes, you're in a gym. Me, I'm training. Oh, cool! I want to do an amateur fight. There's so many problems can come at that time, So if we can try eliminate some of those.
Absolutely. The guy could have had a really bad concussion when he was young, and he doesn't even know that he's not supposed to step into a ring.
Don't even know about it.
That can change everything.
Pre-existing condition on the brain. The amount of scans that we've done on athletes that no one even knows. We'll have an athlete, we'll put them in, we'll do our pre-fight protocol, and we'll say, sorry, this is not a sport for you. You shouldn't be getting hit in the head. Man. There's a problem. You have a pre-existing condition.
Wow.
And then we move it. And then you'll never hear about it because that person never fought and never got injured, which is awesome. That's the best. Best case scenario. Best case scenario, man. Best case scenario.
No, man, congrats to you guys. That's huge, bro. Tell me, if you were to give a new fighter entering the sport who's probably going to find the Contender Series, or who is stepping into this world, what word of advice? You've come across so many fighters and you've come across so many athletes, like, what's a word of advice you would give to someone stepping into the sport today?
They've really got to enjoy it. It's really hard. It's a high level sport. Like it's really difficult. The training side is, lots of sports are really difficult from a training point of view. MMA is really so technical. Boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, all mixed into one, and you're getting hit in the face. So it's like you're gonna grind super hard, and there's only the small percentage make it. All of it, not like any sport. So you really must enjoy it. If you don't like getting in a fight, frankly, then you should be looking for something else to do. Like go spend that time and energy doing something else. Because if you're putting that kind of time and energy into something, you can probably do well in anything. So, but you talk to someone like Dricus, and he loves fighting. He enjoys it. It's his favorite thing. And he's like, when I'm training, I have to hold my punches back when I'm sparring. Now, when I actually get to fight, I get to punch someone as hard as I can. He loves it, Yes, obviously no one likes getting smashed in the nose, but he genuinely enjoys the process of it. Which I would say, if you don't enjoy that side of it, then rather park it and focus all that, because it's an immense amount of energy and time that you're going to put into this, rather put that into something else that you would enjoy.
Absolutely. Anything else from your side, bro?
I think just overall, it's an awesome time to be in South Africa. I think it's an awesome time to be African, frankly. I think there's so much positivity happening here, so much opportunity happening here. And yeah, we love the space we're in, and we just love seeing these athletes progress and do well, and just in general, the overall positivity around where we all are, in the space is so fantastic.
From my side, bro, I just want to say, like, you guys are doing something so important, and just your tenacity to push through these many years, because I'm sure the sport, as it has its ups and downs, like, to just not call it off at some point and to really stick through. And I'm sure there's been moments where it's not been as easy, and like, you guys are absolute legends. You're doing something so important for, like, I think, there's going to be so many more African champions. I just think, and it's across so many things, right? Africa's like the hot topic at the moment. And, it's almost like this hidden gem that's just been, like, no one's really had the spotlight on it, but that doesn't mean people weren't like chipping away at many different things, art, MMA or whatever it is, So I think it's a massive spotlight on the continent at the moment, and you guys are doing such important work. And I really genuinely, I've known you for many years. I think I was even at your wedding,
That's right.
But at the end of the day, like, I think you guys are just getting started, man, and I'm very, very amped for you guys. And yeah, just shout out to you and thank you for making time, bro. If there's any way, anything, pick up the phone, any way we can help, any way we can push it further, like, thank you, bro. I think just that you guys are part of something that is going to be even bigger and greater. I think when you really like just lock in the whole continent, and people are really waking up to the sport now, and even globally, I feel like we're saying earlier, the sport has not reached its peak. I can't think of anything more exciting of, like, two people getting into the octagon, and it's like, I feel like these athletes are going to be the highest paid in the world. Like, it's going to be the highest paying sport in the next couple of years, So just to you guys, to Graham, like your whole team and all the work you guys are doing, man, we see it. Shout out to you. We wish you the absolute best, my brother. Thank you for making time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on the show.
No, absolutely, my bro. That was so beautiful, bro. I think it's going to just give a different perspective. Have you done much podcast stuff or?
No.
Heavy is the head that wear the crown. When I take the crown off, I put it on ice.